engagement session where I'm going to tell you a little bit about the research center where I work. Is a research center of excellence in Singapore called the Singapore Center for Environmental Life Sciences Engineering, and how it is related to sustainability and circular economy. I was asked to share at the beginning a little bit of my journey to become a scientist to you all. So it all started in this little city in the northwest region of Argentina, where I studied chemical engineering. And yes, our bachelors are quite long, so it took a little bit over 4 years to complete. And for those of you that you might have heard of Argentina recently, if you like football, we had quite successful stint in the World Cup. I had a chance to be there in the final. Amazing. And after becoming a chemical engineer, I moved to Buenos Aires. That's 1,500 kilometers away from Salta. And I worked there as steel making process and operation engineers for 5 years. And afterwards, during that period, I also got the chance to work for a couple of months in Mexico as part of that experience. But then I decided to have a career shift in order to have study something that would put me more in contact with sustainability and environment. So I got a fellowship to do a master's. Which makes you more of a program manager. But overall, what I want to share with you is that I had this career shift from steel making, which is totally unrelated to what I do now, which is wastewater treatment, microbiology, molecular biology, microbial ecology, and maybe will resonate with some of you. Some of you might have gone through a career shift, or maybe some of you will have a career shift in some time. And I think that's great. You have to keep an open mind, and I think it's quite an enjoyable journey. So, but we're here to talk about sustainability, and just let's just remember for a little bit what is sustainability. So the definition from the World Commission on Environment and Development is that sustainability is the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So then this calls for the question, what are the needs of the present? So some of you might have heard about the Earth Overshoot Day, which marks the date when humanity has used all of the biological resources that the Earth, our planet, regenerates during an entire year. So think for a moment, which date was it for last year? 3, 2, 1, it was July 28th. So a little bit over the middle of the year, which is not quite good. That means that as of last year, we need 1.75 Earths to sustain, to meet our needs of our present. And that means that clearly the world is not enough for us. And this has been the Earth Overshoot date has becoming farther and farther away from December since we started tracking this in the 70s. So you see that the red bar continues to grow more and more, although not so much recently, which is good. But that means that we have to do things in order to stop increasing our needs in the present. And why does that happen? Because we have overexploitation of resources, overconsumption. We generate a lot of waste, polluting the environment. The design of the products are not quite there yet in terms of life cycles and being able to reuse all the resources that are involved in those products. And then there's a market failure because when we have all these cheap gadgets that we buy for everyday use, that price of those gadgets or things, they don't have usually the hidden environmental costs in that price tag. So within this context, I want to talk about SCELSE. And SCELSE is a biofilm microbiome research center of excellence, and its mission is very much related to sustainability because its mission is to discover and control and direct the behavior of microbial biofilm communities and microbiomes for a sustainable environmental, engineering, public health, and medical applications, right? So we want sustainability and we want applications of these findings in science. And why microbes and biofilms are related to this? Well, because they are everywhere. They are all over, fulfilling all sorts of different roles. They do most of biogeochemical cycles on Earth. They're an integral part of biological wastewater treatment. They can be used also for bioremediation. They're also inside ourselves, like we are holobionts. We have a lot of microbes. Actually, the latest numbers are that we have as many microbes inside us as we have cells of us. So that's how important these guys are, and that's why it's important for us to understand them and study them, which is what we do in SCELSE. And we recognize that biofilm is the preferred form of life that microbes use on Earth. So it's basically the microbes. Let me see if I can put the pointer. So it's basically the microbes plus the slime, which is these extracellular components that they segregate to build this type of structures that give them all sorts of different benefits. And then, of course, this is related with, as I said, with a lot of applications. And these applications are related to the Sustainable Development Goals, which is the world's agenda to try to tackle the different sustainability issues that we currently have by 2030. So in SCELSE, our research and development activities are trying to enable sustainable outcomes and translational opportunities, again, related to applications across multiple ecosystems and different types of systems. We talked a little bit about water treatment, but there's also the whole urban water cycle. We have research related to air microbiome, microbiomes in marine systems, plant soil ecosystems. There's some research studying sea turtles and their biodiversity. We have research related to host microbe interactions, people studying the gut microbiome, for example. There's a lot of research in Microsoft Public Health related to food production, bioprocessing, biotechnology, and then even the effects of that biofilms can have in problems like, for example, biocorrosion, which is the most expensive biofilm problem worldwide currently. And these are some examples of the research activities that we do that can be related, for example, with public health. We've done a lot of research in pathogen detection and surveillance, for example, surveillance of COVID-19 related virus, SARS-CoV-2, in air and in wastewater. We collaborate with local agencies in Singapore, but we also collaborate by delivering research that is available worldwide. So we also have research where we try to improve the yields of crops because the roots of the plants have a lot of microbes that provide them a lot of benefits, like, for example, fixing nitrogen, making phosphorus bioavailable. We have work related to aquaculture and poultry production. I'm going to talk a little bit later in this presentation about novel protein production, which is the project that I work as a project manager in. This is also related with circular economy. But again, many different applications where microbes are involved are explored as part of our, and researched as part of our work in SCELSE, including, for example, trying to find next generation antimicrobials or fighting antibiotic microbial resistance. Or, for example, plastic pollution. We also have researchers that work on microplastics in the ocean or development of biofilms on plastics, the degradation of plastics, and so forth. So you can ask me if you have questions about any of these, you can ask me later in the Q&A session. We also understand that for applications, you have to engage with the local industry and the local institutions. So we have collaborations both nationally in Singapore and internationally with different industries, with different governmental agencies and other research institutions worldwide. So here there are some of these logos. And we also founded a couple of years ago the Singapore National Biofilm Consortium, which is an effort to try to foster this relationship between the research that we do in the academic institutions and the companies or institutions that actually have the problems that need to be solved and can benefit from this interaction with us. In this chart over here, you see how big of a market it is yearly, $5,000 billion, just biofilm related issues, right? They can go from food and safety through health, wastewater treatment, and corrosion. And the idea of this effort through the National Biofilm Consortium is to, again, to engage all these different topics with the different industries that need these problems to be solved. And for example, the project I was a principal investigator, I worked with a local company to try to improve bioremediation of hydrocarbon contaminated soils. And this was through a grant funded by the Singapore National Biofilm Consortium. So this was quite a fruitful experience. And we do all of this because we recognize, right, thanks due to sustainability issues, that we have currently a need to transition from a linear economy where this is a traditional model from the Industrial Revolution, where we consider that the Earth has infinite resources that we can extract to then just produce things, distribute them, consume them, and dispose them, as if the Earth have an infinite regenerative capacity, which now we saw it doesn't. That's why the Earth Overshoot Day fell in July last year. And then we have transitioned from this into a circular economy for both biological or technical cycle of materials through the reuse of these materials, or returning them in the case of the biological materials back to Earth, or keeping the technical materials in circulation as much as possible to different cascades of either reuse, repair, remanufacturing, or recycling. So because we recognize that need, I want to share with you one example of the research project where I work as a project manager. This is led by Professor Wertz in SCELSE, which is a deputy director of the center. And in this project, we want to help transition some industries towards a circular economy. And we recognize that as the world population grows, we need to feed these people, right? This extra amount of people that continues to occupy our our planet. And for that, we need more food. And fish is the fastest growing animal protein industry worldwide. But there's a catch to that, which is that catching fish, which is that the fish need also food to eat. And normally the fish meal is mostly based on animals, fish, and plants, like for example, soybean. And that is unsustainable on the long run. So we need to have sustainable alternative feed sources, and this can come from advanced resource recycling technologies or alternative resource recycling technologies, and that's the core of our project. We want to recycle food processing wastewaters. So these are side streams from the food processing industry that, for example, here in the case of Singapore, we mentioned the soy processing and beer processing markets, industries, but many other industries have side streams that, which means that you have a stream that has nutritional content, not necessarily a high content in contaminants. It has a high nutritional content, but it's not needed as a main part of the process. So that's why it's normally disposed, which means that you pay an economical cost of treating it and also the environmental cost of doing that, because you will generate more emissions that will be put into air, or you will generate some cells that then need to be digested or landfilled. So because we recognize that, we want to take these wastewaters and provide some conditions of fermentation where we transform those into microbial protein that has a high nutritional content and all essential amino acids for fish, and use that as a partial replacement for aquaculture fish meal, which is, as I said, the fastest growing animal protein industry in the world. And also very important here in Singapore. This can help meet a variety of different sustainable development goals, like food security, clean water sanitation, reducing waste, having more sustainable cities and communities, and it's also part, of course, of the Singapore Green Plan for 2030. So as part of this research, we have found a number of things, like, for example, that food processing wastewaters can actually support microbial growth and protein synthesis. So here I'm showing some of the work that was led by a PhD student, a young scientist like many of you all there in the audience. Fun fact, he's getting married today in India, Beta, so congrats to you on your upcoming wedding. Tonight is going to be. And we also found that this can be done via a mixed community approach, which is actually good. Normally, fermentation is done in actinic conditions, which means that you have one organism and you try to keep that system uncontaminated. So that's very expensive. But then we're doing it via a mixed community approach, which means that it's more cost effective, and it also has a series of additional benefits that if you want, we can discuss later. So we provide conditions for these wastewaters. In the case of these pictures, are soybean processing wastewater. So this is from the soaking of beans. It's a part of the process when you do tofu. And then these waters become waste but it's actually a side stream that could be recovered because they're very nutritional. I mean, they have interesting nutritional content. So we use those as food to grow microbes. So this powder over here is actually microbial cells that they were freeze-dried in this case. And then these microbes have all essential amino acids that are required for growing aquaculture animals. So we took those and actually did a trial using Asian sea bass fingerlings. So this is a very important type of fish for local aquaculture, which is part of the local cuisine. And these fish were able to grow as well as they did with traditional fish meal, which is actually very encouraging results as part of our research, which is still ongoing. And further, we also tried that in shrimp. And then this research is currently ongoing, but so far we have very interesting results. We're also scaling up the production of microbial protein through collaborations that we have in URI, which is another research institute that is located in NTU. SCELSE, the institute where I work, is shared between both NTU and NUS, which are the largest universities in Singapore. And here you can see that this reactor is very big, it's 100 liters, and we can produce way more amount of microbial protein there than in the tiny reactors that I showed earlier. And these are collaborators in Aquaculture Innovation Center that are leading the aquaculture trials because they are experts in that particular field. So to do this kind of research, you need a strong multidisciplinary team, and to be able to work on that, you have to keep up an open mind and be curious because you have people coming from different fields with sometimes very different views on similar topics. But that's it's a great and very stimulating environment to work with. So I would totally recommend to be a part of interdisciplinary and cross-functional teams. So yes, to sum it up, basically, through this short presentation, I hope you now believe that harnessing biofilms and microbial systems is key to achieve a sustainable development and a circular bioeconomy, because they're basically everywhere, carrying all sorts of different functions, which are very important for us, like it or not. And then for this goal, we need science. So this is why it's great to have this Global Young Scientist Summit. You're there in the right place. And we need you guys. And we, again, need a multidisciplinary approach. That's why I think it's also great that this biofilm talk comes right after a talk about planets and before a talk about protein coupled reception activation. So this is great. And with that, this is a picture of for you to see how diverse our research center is. We have people from all over the world for many different ages and ethnicities, and it's a great and stimulating place to work. So with that, I'll be happy to take any questions. So I'll check. I was told to check the slide, though. So I'm going there. Okay, I see some questions here. So I see a question from Rahul that asks if there any evidence supporting the hypothesis that fish's internal microbiome can aid in oceanic microplastic degradation. So I don't know the answer to that question because I personally don't work in microplastic degradation, neither on fish internal gut microbiome, though I have collaborators that work on that. So I wouldn't know whether that's true or not. What I do know is that microbes are starting to degrade plastic more and more. In my personal opinion, it's just a matter of time. Think about it like plastics are a xenobiotic material, right? It's produced by men. So it wasn't here, let's say, 100 years ago. And microbes have been here for many years, right? Many thousands of years. And it's just a matter of time that then they develop the ability to degrade it, right? So there are already some microbes that can degrade plastics, and they will do it faster and faster as time progresses. And I have another question here: where is microbial harmful to humans, right? So I guess this can be understood as if microbes can be harmful to humans. Yes, some microbes can be harmful to humans. Some are pathogenics. Viruses are also microbes, and we've seen what happened in the pandemic, right? But then there are many microbes that are beneficial. Like we have microbes in our gut, for example, that carry key functions. Without those functions, we wouldn't be able to exist. So many organisms like us, plants, and you name it, all the big, large organisms have developed these symbiotic relationships with microbes because they have greater and wider metabolic potential compared to us, right? So for example, we need oxygen to respire and generate energy. and microbes can use all sorts of different electron acceptors other than oxygen, and they can again cycle all. They perform most of the biogeochemical cycles on Earth, so they can make components bioavailable for us that without them we wouldn't be able to use them. So they're amazing. And then, yeah, these are only the 2 questions that I have so far. So yeah, if anybody else has any other question, I can take it. And let's wait a few seconds to see if any other question pops up. All right. Okay, so then if there are no more questions, thank you guys for your time. I hope you could learn something new and are a little bit more excited about working with biofilms. And yeah, I hope you have an excellent summit, and I'll see you around.